We're live with the Wood Brothers here at 91.3 WYEP, and that last song really does fit that Paradise title on what you were talking about just a little bit earlier. Well, you guys playing Mr. Small's Theater tonight. This next question, Chris, is specifically for you about as you entered music, getting serious about music. You started off on the academic route, right?
The academic route?
And going to
musically?
Yeah, musical conservatory.
Well, might look like that from the outside. I ended up at the New England Conservatory. The main reason I went there is because Dave Holland was teaching there, who was a great bass player who played with Miles Davis, and I was pursuing jazz at the time and thought that what you're supposed to do is end up in New York City, but I wasn't ready to go right to New York yet, so I stopped by Boston and went to the conservatory. But I dropped out pretty quick. I didn't last long there because I just started playing professionally, and then I met John Medeski and formed Medeski, Martin and Wood, and just kind of went right to New York after a couple of years.
Well, there's different ways of learning, and it sounds to me like for you, what worked was getting out and doing it and learning it that way.
That was the most valuable. I mean, not to discredit, I had amazing teachers at the conservatory, all of whom were professional touring and playing musicians, so they were not necessarily just academic teachers. They were all real players, and I think that was a huge influence. But yeah, getting out there and just moving to New York and playing shows and gigs, playing with other great musicians, there's kind of nothing better in terms of really learning.
I'm always fascinated by how people, just anybody in this room, starts to learn about music. And you start off probably like most people listening to the radio, and it's probably a fairly narrow scope, and then you hopefully are exposed to other things, and maybe those things, first of all, when you hear them, you don't know what to make of them, or they don't appeal to you, but you keep learning. And I was wondering about that for you, because the music in this band is one aspect of what you do. There's so many other things. So I'm curious about that whole process of learning that, wow, there's a lot more that I can and want to do.
Well, I think we have a lot of musical influences. I know coming from Medeski, Martin and Wood, we were influenced by so many kinds of music, and which made it hard for us commercially because we defied any kind of category, so no one knew how to sell our music. But I feel like we all bring that same spirit to this band, even though we're writing songs. It's really about the craft of songwriting. But when we arrange the music, that's when we get to really have fun with all these influences we have that range from, blues and R&B and funk to folk music to, African and Brazilian field recordings to Americana kind of field recordings to everything. I mean, really anything. There's no limits to it. But yet it's got to be appropriate for the song that we're trying to embellish,
Yeah, and this trio gives you something very different to work out. And Oliver, I'm going to pull you back up here, because first thing I want to do is ask you to tell us about that amazing guitar you're holding.
Mm-hmm. This is a National steel guitar, which is the kind of thing they invented. I feel like it was pre-World War I, when they were trying to compete with pianos and loud bar rooms and stuff, and they would make these steel guitars that are kind of bright and harsh and actually louder than the average wooden guitar. So that's sort of the origin of these, and they've then since become kind of a treasured guitar for a lot of traditional music and blues music. And dobro players play something a lot like this, but they play it this way. But it has these same what are called resonators inside here, which they're basically speaker cones that project the sound out. So.
Well, I would imagine that when you're writing a song, depending on what instrument you pick up, it might take a song in a different direction than you expected.
Absolutely. We talk about that a lot, and depending on what instrument you pick up, it'll put you in a certain place, in a certain mood, and it'll influence how you write something. And that's why it's fun to pick up just old guitars and that are sometimes pawn shop guitars are hard to tune, but they just have character. And I really do feel like this isn't a very old guitar, but like sometimes we get into some really old instruments. I mean, Chris's instrument's almost 100 years old, and there is this intangible spirit in these instruments that, you could talk pretty woo-woo about it if you wanted to, but there is something to it. Like there's some history to these instruments, and they they inspire you in real subconscious ways sometimes.
Yeah, I always look at instruments and I think, the ones that are being played on stage, those are the lucky ones, that somebody found them and knows how to use them.
Right.
Now, I have a different question for you, Oliver, and that's about singing. And, singing, for some people, it's natural. They come right to it, and that's what they want to do. For other people, they have to sort of be coaxed into it. And I read that when you were touring with Tinsley Ellis, it was he who kept pushing you a little bit and saying, get out there in front of that microphone.
He really did, yeah. He was a good mentor in that regard. He was supportive, and he knew I wanted to, but I started pretty late singing, and so it was nice to have peers that were older and more experienced to say, hey, you can do it, and just give you a chance, even if, the spotlight wasn't even meant for me. Tinsley actually let me sing a song every night at the shows, and that was a good start for me.
Well, I would imagine that singing is you have to have, it comes with self-confidence. It comes with, as you mature even as a person, that's going to affect what you do as you approach that mic.
Absolutely, and just like playing an instrument, you start out sort of emulating and copying people, and then finding your own voice is a tricky thing, and trusting your own voice, because you can a lot of people think of music a little more like sports, and it's competitive, and you try to outdo somebody, but it's all about being yourself. So.
Yeah, somebody once said that creativity comes from trust, comes from trusting yourself.
I like that.
Well, we are here with the Wood Brothers, and they have this new album out that my guess is you would enjoy it if you got it. It's called Paradise, and they're playing Mr. Small's Theater tonight, so you can get more of this in a great setting with other people who are excited about music as well. So we're going to ask you to do one more tune, please.